an interesting start to the first Connected Coaches. But yeah, we will kind of take it in its stride, as we always do within multi sport when we get these hurdles and unsuspected events like COVID-19. Yeah, so we'll take it from there. So Bells, I thought we could just start kind of on your journey as a coach. For those of you that know Ryan, he's an ex-professional cricketer who retired from the game and has moved into the coaching realm, and we're very fortunate to have him at Marty's sport, and for him to be able to impart his cricketing knowledge and wisdom on our young student athletes, and hopefully shape them into professional cricketers who have degrees, which is probably one of the most important things. So Bales, if you wouldn't mind just taking us kind of on your coaching journey, how did it start, your influences over the years, and how that shaped you to end up at Marty Sport and to be the coach that you are right now.
Yeah, thanks, Grant, and good afternoon to everyone that's watching. Thank you very much for your time. Yeah, Grant, my coaching journey, it's an interesting one. It started when I was quite young. Back in the day, we didn't have professional coaches that could, give you throwdowns and so forth and so on. So throwdowns used to take place between myself and one of my teammates. And what you then had to look out for is to make sure that technically it was good enough. If you did pick up something with the eye, that you can correct him. So that's where that journey started of coaching. And it was subconsciously. I didn't quite realize at the time that I was coaching. But that's where it all started. And then I was at Western Province Cricket Club. I was about 13 or 14 years old. And I started to coach the mini cricket side, which is your under 10 cricketers. I remember on a Friday afternoon, you'd make a bit of money for the weekend, coaching. And that's where, the love for cricket and the love for coaching actually started again, subconsciously. I was doing something that I loved. So for me, it wasn't seen as coaching. It was just seen as, allowing the kids to play and helping them along. So, that initial stage of my coaching started, way back in I think it was like 95, 96, but very subconsciously. Yeah, and then out of school, I went over to England to play some club cricket over there as the overseas professional for a number of teams. And most of you won't know, but again, on a Friday afternoon, sometimes on a Thursday as well, you have all the age groups coming in for practice. And that's where the real love for coaching took place. Just watching how the different players progress, how the game progresses, and then seeing the results on a Saturday. And that was massive for me. Just seeing the hard work that I have put in over the years with specific players at the club. Normally, when you go back to a club in our winter and coming back and just seeing how these players have progressed, and that was all due to the hard work that you have put in. So yeah, Grant, from my side, coaching started very young. Yeah. More first subconsciously, and then the older I got, I felt that I could definitely make a difference in the lives of cricketers.
Yeah. Bales, were there any, as you were growing up as a youngster and playing, cricket in the Western Province region, were there any coaches that you came across or that you kind of were under their tutelage a little bit that influenced or that were hugely influential to how you coach these days?
Yeah, Les Wensler was one of them. He was at Western Province Cricket Club when I was still at school and making my way out of school, trying to earn myself a contract. He played a massive role in coaching me, and I took a lot of the way he coached, and I, used that into the way I coach today. And then a little bit late in my career, Russell Domingo. I remember we were on a SA8 trip to Bangladesh at the time, and I wasn't playing in the 4-day format. I was just there for white ball cricket, for the one-day stuff. And I had a lot of time with him in the nets. And the way he went about his coaching definitely made an impression on me and on me as a coach today. And the way he allowed me to make mistakes, and allowed me to take responsibility for my own game and my own coaching as per se. So you'd ask questions,
Yep.
and I would then answer those questions. And whilst answering those questions, I'd kind of work it out for myself what I was doing correctly and what
Yeah.
I needed to work on. So he definitely played a massive role in terms of how I coach today.
Okay, fantastic. And then obviously, you made your way into the professional cricket ranks, and you were a very successful, cricketer, a professional cricketer for a number of years, and a number of different franchises. And then it probably got to the point in your career where your two dodgy knees started packing up a little bit, and couldn't run as quickly between the wickets as you were known to run between the wickets. Or athletically out on the field. And then obviously the call to become a coach was something that obviously you were interested in doing, and you got the opportunity at Marty's, working under Andrew Wiley. How were those initial years, stepping into that coaching reign, and working with highly influenced students, or at a very an age where you can really shape their game immensely.
Yeah, the coaching and the realization of the fact that I could do this as a profession really started while still playing cricket. The coach would always tell us at the time, say, listen, why don't you take one of the tail end batters and work with them? And what I realized in working with the lesser batters in the team is that it helped me with my game. So all the things that I was speaking and saying, I'll then take on board, not knowing that that was already within me, and I had all that knowledge, but by just verbalizing the processes of batting, that helped my game while still playing cricket. So there was definitely a love for it then, and I think that the penny dropped as to, what, I love what I'm doing. I love giving advice. I love helping, and I love watching players grow. So why not give it a crack? Yes, the two knee operations came along. I was still at the Warriors at the time, and I got a phone call. To ask if I would not be interested in the Marty's job, and I mean, I jumped at it. Andrew Wiley was still head coach at the time. I was his assistant, and I must say, working with impressionable young men who's newly out of school, and teaching them, the ropes in terms of how do you practice, how do you go about practice, how do you score runs, how do you bowl, how do you feel at a level that I was used to. And I think I brought in that energy of a franchise cricketer because I was newly out of the game.
Yeah.
I brought in that energy, as if I was still playing. So
Yeah.
practices, the energy at practices, kind of, I challenged them at that. I challenged the energy during games and the focus that they need to have. So yes, I mean, that's how I got into the Marty's job, and thanks to Faisal, I saw, who's also on this webinar. Thanks to Andrew Wiley, Sean Surmon was in that committee that brought me on board, and I love it. I love it. I love what I do. I've got a passion for it. The boys will tell you, sometimes I do go overboard because I'm a bit of a perfectionist when it comes
Yeah.
to, making sure that they prepare well. But all in all, the cricketing program at Marty's, at Stellenbosch University, is for me to make sure that when the players graduate and they move on to provincial level,
Yeah.
that they are well prepared. And well prepared in the terms of they're used to the intensity of playing at a high level. And I think that's where a lot of cricketers fall short. They take a bit more time to get used to that intensity when going up a level. So that's what we're all about at Stellenbosch University.
And Bales, and Andrew Wiley got a fantastic opportunity and moved off to as the director of cricket at Wynberg Boys, and Wynberg Boys have done fantastically over the last couple of years, hugely thanks to Wiles's influence. Stepping up into the head coach role at Stellenbosch University, how was that for you? And it's a lot of responsibility on what a lot of people might perceive as quite a young coach, although you've got a massive amount of experience as a player. How was that for you, and that transition into the head coach role?
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to spend a year under Andrew Wiley, and I kind of took in what it was like and what Stellenbosch University was like in terms of the academic pressure. All our students are, studying degrees, and there is massive academic pressure. The cricketing program is student athlete, which means their studies come first. So I then learned from that, my first year, how to deal with those kind of pressures and how to manage players. When I took over as head coach, I loved it. As I said, it's my passion. I made sure that the setup was as professional as I can get it. I made sure that we had the buy-in of the high-performance athletes that we had at the time. I also made sure that guys took responsibility for their club and took responsibility for their performances, and also laying out their own practice sessions. So for me, I felt it was quite easy coming from a professional setup, because I was a player, a year or two ago. So I felt it was quite easy to pass on, that energy, that knowledge, the way I ran the sessions, so it wasn't a massive jump for me personally. I enjoyed it. I enjoy what I do. But yeah, just to be as professional as possible. And I think, the boys have bought into that at the moment, and when I took over as head coach.
Fantastic. So we'll move on a little bit just to talk more about your coaching philosophy, within Stellenbosch University and your coaching principles that you apply. Coaching in South Africa, it's quite a unique experience. How have you felt that and had to deal with cultural differences, which is a factor in every single sports code within South Africa?
Yeah, I just want to mention that, my coaching philosophy has changed, and it changes, year on year. It might be every 6 months, because in our coaching landscape in South Africa, a lot of things change. I mean, we have different languages, different cultures. So, yes, we watch a lot of webinars of guys in America and the way they do it, or guys in Australia and the way they do it. I feel in South Africa, we a lot different. We have to be diverse. So my coaching philosophy, kind of changes, and it shapes itself depending on what is in front of me. And from a cricketing coaching point of view, I feel you got to have that relationship with the player. You got to make sure that off the field he trusts you. He trusts what you're saying. It comes from the heart. And that is my philosophy, is that you got to be real with the player. It's an inside out approach, which means that the player has to come to the coach to tell him what he wants to do. Obviously, if there are things and areas that needs to be adjusted, I can speak to them. But from my side, yes, you got to be flexible. You got to be dynamic. You got to be able to think on your feet. As a coach within the South African landscape, as cricket is, and that's the only way you're going to get the best out of the players. Also, a big part of my philosophy is to be as professional as I can be, and professional as the athlete can be as well. So what we do is, in times of when they're writing exams, instead of them not coming to practice at all, I will give them a half an hour to 45-minute slot to come in, do what they want to do, and then head off back to the books. And that is also part of, being dynamic, making sure that you empower players to manage their time, etc., etc. And hopefully at the end of the day, is to develop thinking cricketers, to develop guys that are brave enough to follow their game plan that they thought about themselves, And my job then is to make sure that they have the skills to execute that game plan. So, yeah, my philosophy has changed over the years. I started off as, this is the way, we better go in this direction. And
Yeah.
over the years, it has changed, Grant. It definitely has changed a lot to what squad of players I have. How am I going to get the best out of every player? So I've got to have, say, there's 14 guys and we're off to a varsity sports competition. I've got to know what makes all 14 guys tick. So there's got to be separate ways to make sure I can get the best out of them. And that's all what coaching is to be that mentor, to be that role model figure for them so that they can come to you, and you need to be accessible to them at all times.
Yeah, I think I agree with you 100%. I'm definitely not the same sports scientist that I was when I first started out, and the need to be dynamic is something that's it's needed to survive within sport. I mean, if I look back at myself, the first varsity sports tournament that I went to with Marty's, and compared to the person that I am now, it's vastly different. And I think growth within the coaching space is needed. I think you can't be stagnant, and if you're not willing to change the environment or the team that you've got, you're gonna find yourself in some trouble. Bells, I wanted to ask you a little bit more on the cultural differences. Are there any unique stories that you might have where different people's cultures have had an influence in a team dynamic, or something along those lines that you've experienced as a coach?
Yeah, no, most definitely. I mean, in the 4 years that I have been involved in Marty's cricket, we've seen a massive appreciation for the cultural differences that we have. I mean, I take the Xhosa boys or men, they left as boys and they come back as men, where the club did not understand why we had our Xhosa men, go off for a month. And they could understand where were they, what was happening. They'll come back a month later and they put on a bit more weight. That Grant, you had to make sure that they needed to get into shape. And what we did was we held you can call it a meeting, or we held a get together where we asked the men coming back from the bush, is it okay? Would they kind of elaborate on what has taken place? Leaving Stellenbosch as a boy and coming back as a young man, and that opened the eyes of a lot of my players that was not from the Xhosa background. I didn't know anything about it. It kind of taught me, the differences in culture. At the time, I thought, well, it's one black culture and that's it. And that was just me being very naive, very tunnel vision. And thanks to, the players, Vezi Mtungwa, Kanya de Lima, those guys opened up to us and they shared a little bit of what it is like, leaving for the bush, going in and the ceremony taking place and then coming back as a man. And what it did was it made me grow as a coach, in terms of I need to also see them as young men coming back, and there's different aspects to their life that you got to now respect. So I think that was a major shift in our cricket club, is to have those guys come back and just to share that experience with us. After that, we had them speak, their language, the Xhosa language, at the back of the nets, and that to me was massive. From a coach, it gave me goosebumps at the time that they were so comfortable in being themselves. And that's what we push, and that's what we want and promote, is for the players to be themselves. You don't need to be anyone you're not. I take it for example, we have Afrikaans, a culture of Afrikaans boys that go home during the winter, and they come back and they'll tell us about their hunting stories. And I, for one, didn't know that the first buck or the first animal that you hunt, You got to eat the
Yeah.
balls and the blood all
Yeah.
over your face.
Yeah.
So those are the cultural differences that we need to understand as coaches in South Africa,
Yeah.
and you need to treat every culture, as it is. You cannot have a blanket approach.
Yeah. It's in such a multicultural country like South Africa. It's certainly not an easy job for a coach. To get to know everyone's culture and what works for them and what doesn't. And I think that's one of the unique aspects of being a coach in South
Mm.
Africa. I think if you manage to coach successfully within South Africa, you could walk into a job anywhere overseas, and it would probably be a lot simpler, because just the cultural aspects are far less dynamic as they are in South Africa. But thanks, Bells, for sharing that a little bit on your coaching philosophy. And I think now, I mean, within Stellenbosch University, it's obviously a very unique environment working with student athletes. These are not professional athletes. They are students first, and they are athletes second. Yet, we try and be the most professional amateurs that we can be within Marty's cricket and within Marty's sport in general. What is it like for you as a coach who's experienced players at a franchise level? What is it like for you working with student athletes? What makes it special?
What makes it special is that they absorb all the info that I'll give them. They're accessible. They want to learn because they're young. Some of them are straight out of school. A few of them will be 2 or 3 years, out of school that still wants to learn. And what is nice is that you have cricketers at Marty's that still aspire to play at a higher level. And
Mm,
that's where I'll come in, and I'll help them along in what it takes to play provincial or franchise cricket. So working with them, I love. They're like a sponge when you get them, and they take in all the information. What I also enjoy is the time that they offer.
yeah.
So they might have a class between 9 and 11, and 11:30 they're with me having a hit, and they might have another class at 2. So we are flexible in our times that we have our one-on-one sessions, and what times work for different athletes, student athletes.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, I love it. I just love what I do with the students. They listen, they take everything in, and you see a different student when you have him in a one-on-one session, when there's no distraction, when there's no peer pressure. So those one-on-one sessions that we have are special.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously, I think the beauty of student sport is that the guys and girls that are participating at sport at a university are there to get degrees, which helps them for life after sport or life after cricket. And
Mm-hmm.
when we did some prep work for this webinar, I've wrote down your quote here where you said a degree gives a player more freedom. Would you care to just elaborate on that a little bit more? Or what does that mean to you when you said that?
Yeah, no, look, from a personal experience, playing professional cricket is tough. It is hard. You playing for your next contract, and if you don't have any backing, if you don't have a degree that you've completed before becoming a professional cricketer, or even while becoming a professional cricketer, you're always under pressure. You're always playing, thinking, you know what, if I don't get runs today, are they going to sign me? Are they going to give
Yeah.
me another 2-year contract? And I feel, that kind of puts puts you in a box. It weighs you down. Whereas if you a professional cricketer and you have a degree and you have something to fall back on, it just gives you the freedom to express yourself, knowing that if cricket doesn't work out, I can always go back to trying to get a job, whatever it is that I study, and try and get into the business world. So,
Mm.
yeah, no, most definitely, it just frees up the player to express himself. And as we all know, you're only going to succeed when you don't have that pressure on you, when you have a
Yeah.
clear mind and you can express yourself. And I feel that's what happens when a guy, if I look at David Bedingham on the slide, he knows that he's got something to fall back on, so he can express himself and he can play, and not worry about is he going to get a contract at the end of the year, because if he doesn't get a contract, he will have his degree to fall back on.
Yeah. And Bells, I think it's definitely a trend within sport at the moment, and I think it's because of the generation of athletes that are coming through. Guidance and mentorship, and your relationship with your captain and your leadership group. How important is that for you? We're seeing it more and more in teams and coaches doing press conference talking about the leadership group this and the leadership group that. What role does a leadership group and the captain have in supporting your vision as the head coach of Marty's Cricket?
Yeah, no, extremely important, especially when you're working with student athletes. I get the feeling that, at practices and on the field, I can speak and I can kind of help, help the guys to follow my philosophy and my outlook on cricket, and outlook on life. But when you have a leadership group and peers within that leadership group and peers within the team, is that time away from the field. They will speak more freely, they'll speak more openly with each other. And if you have that relationship with your captain and the leadership group, it helps, because they will come back to me not to snitch on their fellow teammate, but they will just give me some information on how certain players are feeling at a time. I might have said something that a player did not agree with, and the player just doesn't feel confident enough or comfortable enough to come and speak to me about it. So that's where you have your captain and your leadership group kind of take control. Also, small issues within the team, like guys coming late to practices, to games. Those are issues that the captain and the leadership group will sort out. So I can concentrate on the things that I want to concentrate on. So yes, it plays a massive role. It plays a massive role in getting to know or getting to push the team culture. Also a massive role on being a mentor for some, especially if you have a captain who's been at Marty's for 4 years and a first year comes in, he can be that mentor for that first year. So it takes a bit off my plate in terms of being a mentor, being a leader, and putting some emphasis on the older leadership group captain, just to help me out to look after the group, to look after the boys. We do have 20, I think it's 24, 25 guys in the high performance group, so it does get difficult for me to get to everyone. And yes, my captain and the group does a phenomenal job in just helping around. There might be some disciplinary issues, small disciplinary issues that they can look after, and they just make my job a lot easier. But they also give me feedback on the environment, the team environment, what's happening when I turn my back, what's going on when I'm not there.
Yeah, I think that's the leadership group for me, and obviously working very closely with you over the last couple of years has been a great success and a great initiative when we initially put it together under the guidance of our performance psychologist Eugene Oppold, and it's really grown. So just to give a bit of context, it was a leadership group that was entirely selected by the Marty's Cricket management and the head coach, and it's progressed over the years now to where the players select their leadership group in order to represent them and guys that they feel comfortable with interacting on a more personal or more one-on-one stuff, or really dealing with some potentially tough issues with management. So it's been fantastic to have senior guys take control, but it's not only limited to the senior guys. There can be a first year who shows leadership potential that you can put straight into a leadership group, and their input is also very important across the whole spectrum of a student athlete, from a first year student all the way up to a postgrad student. I think their input is always valuable. So Bells, moving on to the high performance program at Marty's sport, and particularly within the Marty's cricket context. We're all aware that the Marty sport teams get access to similar services, but what are the standout things for you that has helped your job as a head coach in preparing these cricketers to go out and perform at the best that they are able to as student athletes?
Yeah, well, the PACER program for one is something that has helped us tremendously in terms of how we go about our day-to-day living, how we want to be, as men, and how we want to represent the university. Also, it helps with, just the academic side of things, and how you want to make sure that academically you sound, academically you're doing well in class, because holistically that is what we're looking for. We're looking for the guy that is doing very well in class, and also the guy that can perform, on the field. So the PACER program definitely helps us in terms of that. Personal empowerment is part of that PACER program, and then also community awareness, and that is something that is really close to me, and something that I feel that we can do a lot more of. We are doing a lot of coaching sessions with hubs and the community in and around Stellenbosch. So I just feel that the program, the PACER program, just gives us a lot more. It helps the guys with whatever they need, in terms of academics, as I mentioned, in terms of cricket. So yes, one of the definite standouts for me at the moment is this program.
Okay, the rest of the stuff. Maybe you want to elaborate more on the stuff that has really assisted you over the years. I mean, you've got a number of points that we jotted down here. Just your viewpoint on S&C and the medical support that's provided.
Yeah, I mean, the program we run is as professional as it's going to get. We definitely up there, and we look after our players in a manner that I've only seen in professional sports. Hence, our medical support staff and on campus health, when our boys get injured, whether it be on a net session or during a game. If you're part of a high performance squad, you can go and see a medical doctor, and that's free of charge, to help you to make sure that you get diagnosed with whatever it is. And then we have the physios, the bios on hand, to make sure that they looked after. And then yourself, Grant, the S&C, in conjunction with the bios and the physios, to make sure that athlete is 100% fit and ready to play. So it's amazing. I mean, I can't emphasize enough, the support we get from the high performance unit. Grant, yourself as the S&C, looking after the boys in the gym, making sure that they're fit, they're strong and ready for tournaments. As we know, the tournaments are 5 days of grueling cricket. At varsity sports, it's 5 days, and you play something like 8 games, T20 games after those 5 days. So it is extremely important. And with that, we also have a performance psychologist in Eugene Oppold, and that is very important, especially as a student athlete. The pressures of your academics, the pressures that are on, and the expectations that are put on them when it comes to game time, he helps them, and he makes sure that they are ready to go. They are one team, and they're all gelling with each other. And just one story that comes out of that psychology sessions is that Eugene has a way of getting the guys to open up. And as young men, they don't open up very easily. And at the moment, we've built a culture, and we've built a group of men where any issues, any problems, you can speak to his peer, can come speak to me about it, because we built that trust and that open communication with each other, which is extremely important, Grant. So I mean, the program is phenomenal. We just upgraded our nets. We built it on the same kind of structure that Newlands has. at the moment. So the nets are up and running. Hopefully we can get our middle strips extended, which we're still busy with. And then, as you see, the next point is that I'm a full-time coach. The boys have access to me all day long. So if they want to come for one-on-one hits, etc., I'm there. I'm there to help them no matter what it is, cricketing wise. And then we also have our expert consultants. Ezra Poole, who's also our assistant coach, acts as our wicket-keeping consultant. And then newly we brought in Rory Kleinveld, who is our bowling consultant. And these guys work with professional cricketers. So we are trying to give our student athletes the best that's out there to make sure that they can develop and then they can become the cricketers that they want to become in a nutshell.
I must say that you were talking about Eugene and the performance psychology side of the game. I mean, cricket is such a mental sport, and the challenges of if you're a batsman trying to eke your way out to 100. And dealing with all of the stress and the pressures, especially as student athletes, outside of just cricket, is immense. And I think Eugene has helped us create a place where guys feel comfortable to talk about issues. I don't think there's a single Marty Sports team that has worked with Eugene that hasn't had a tear or two when you hear a story about a teammate that you didn't know. There was a death in the family or financial stuff, or just their background. So it's an often overlooked area within high performance sport. But if I was in a position where I could appoint staff to form my perfect high performance team, a performance psychologist would be probably one of the first names I put down. And I think it's important, not just for the players, but the support that Eugene is able to give you as a coach as well is immense, because we all know that being a coach can be a very lonely and dark place sometimes, especially when things aren't necessarily going to plan. Eugene support, or what is your thinking about coaches having somebody, whether it's a performance psychologist or a mental skills person or whoever it is, for coaches to chat to, or somebody as a soundboard? I know Gary Kirsten had it. Him and Paddy Upton were like the dynamic duo, and Paddy had a huge role to play as a soundboard for Gary, more so than the players. How's your experience having access to a performance psychologist for you being as a head coach?
Yeah, it's been invaluable. I mean, for me personally, he's a phone call away. We have a great relationship in how we work and how we go about things. And yes, Grant, as you say, coaching is a lonely place to be. You gotta when you're with a team, you gotta put up a front that everything's okay and everything's going smoothly. But sometimes everything doesn't go smoothly. And if you have that support, just to, as you said, that soundboard, just to find out, how do I treat and how do I go about looking after a certain player with a situation or circumstance that I'm not used to. So he definitely comes in and he helps me big time in terms of my coach-player relationships. He will help me in terms of how do I deal with, let's say we have a maverick within the group. What do I do to make sure I get the best out of that player, and to make sure that he is still disciplined and conforms to what the team wants him to do? It's extremely important. He has helped me immensely develop and grow with my emotional intelligence as to how I go about coaching. So yes, no, I mean, I got to give it all to Eugene, that him being there has really helped me to develop, and especially, as I said, emotional intelligence, which is massive in coaching. He's been there to help me through that stage.
Fantastic. So, Bales, I'm just going to ask you, we've reached kind of the end of the official presentation stuff, so I'm just going to ask you a couple of quick fire questions that we haven't really prepared for, but it will just be a handful of them. The best bowler that you ever faced as a professional cricketer?
It's got to be Dale Steyn.
Dale Steyn.
Mhm.
The most well-rounded student cricketer that you have had the privilege of working with over the last few years?
Jeez, Grant. I've got to be careful what I say here. But I think Neil Buerta. Neil Buerta has to be that guy. I mean, he got his masters in actuarial science. Extremely bright young man. Playing cricket for Boland as well, and also performing for us on the top stage. So yeah, Neil Buerta will definitely be that guy.
Okay, and the most influential coach that you have worked with?
It's got to be Russell Domingo in terms
Okay.
of the way he goes about things, the way he allows the player to make the mistakes and not be afraid to make mistakes. But you got to learn from them as well. So yes, just giving that responsibility back to the players and not kind of coming from just the coach telling you what to do. There's got to be a communication both ways.
And what piece of advice would Ryan Bailey, the coach in 2020, give Ryan Bailey, the coach 4 or 5 years ago?
Be patient. Be patient with who we're working with. A lot of the times we want results now, and I've seen that with my student athletes. First years coming in and they want to play for the Cobras within their first year. It can be done, yes, but you got to be patient. You got to trust your process and what is laid out for you, and you got to make sure that when that opportunity comes, you're ready to snap it up. And that's the biggest thing that I tell my boys is that prepare and practice as if you are a franchise cricketer already. So when those chances come, you're ready to take it. You might only get one chance. You get runs, you take wickets, you stand out, and it kicks your cricket career off.
Fantastic. I wanted to put not any questions. I wanted to put it out to the attendees. If there are any questions that they would like, they can either type it in the meeting chat, or if somebody wants to raise their hand. I see people already asking about your golf handicap, Bales. I'm sure that your short game has improved during the lockdown with all the chipping and putting you've been doing at home.
Yeah, no, the golf handicap at the moment, I feel like I'm about a 24. But prior lockdown, I was a 5.
And I see the deputy director is asking how much money you've lost on the golf course over the years.
Fortunately enough, I haven't lost any money to Sean, so let's just put that out there.
Yo, Blitzem! Yo, Blitzem!
But yeah, look, you lose a few $100 here and there, but definitely lost way more than what I've won. A few of my mates call me the walking ATM machine.
Cool. So if there's anybody that wants to turn on their mic and ask Bales a question relating to coaching or his experience as a coach, please feel free to. I think there is a raising of the hand option, or within Microsoft Teams, or you can just ask a question in the meeting chat. A question that's come up: if you weren't a cricket coach, what would you be, Bales?
Grant, I reckon it would be something to do with sport. I mean, growing up in a sporting household, spending from, I think it was 4 or 5 years old, spending the full day next to the cricket field with my dad. Winter times was soccer. So it would have been something to do with sport. I mean, my first year out of school, I enrolled in a sports management course. I didn't finish it, but I enrolled in a sports management course, not knowing whether I was going to become a professional cricketer or not. So I definitely would have stayed within that sporting realm.
Fantastic. All right. It doesn't seem like there are too many questions coming through. So Bales, thanks very much for your time. We are on just under an hour. Thanks very much for the sharing of your coaching knowledge and your experience, and hopefully some of the attendees that see you often on the Kutsenberg campus or around the cricket field at Stellenbosch University or any one of the other universities that we travel to for some of our tournaments, feel like they got to know you a bit better, and that they are can come up and chat to you. So thanks very much for sharing that. For sharing that your knowledge.
Thanks, Grant.
Grant,
Thanks
can I say something, please?
Yes, sure, Zan.
No, sorry, I don't have a question. I just want to say thank you to Coach Ryan, because he's one of the coaches since I arrived at Marty's who I've really looked up to, and has always been someone that I can call upon, sort of guide me and show me the way. And I just want to say, you know what, I think those relationships are very important, because, as you said, being a coach is a very lonely job. It's not a very nice place to be, very cold up there. But he's always been available for a coffee and a chat, and to guide me accordingly. So I didn't want this session to go without me saying that I really appreciate who he is to me.
Thanks, Coach Zan.
Thanks, Zan, and we're looking forward to your chat in a couple of weeks' time on the Connected Coaches series. Hopefully, by then we will have sorted out the live issue. Maybe this platform is actually just a bit better. But next week, it is a long weekend this weekend, so the Deputy Director has requested that we move the Tuesday slots to a Wednesday for him for next week. So next week we will have the Deputy Director of Marty's Sports High Performance Unit, Mr. Sean Surmon. He will come on board and be our connected coach. I personally have walked a long way with Sean since he was my lecturer in my honours year in when was that? 2008. So we've had a relationship since 2008. Many stories to tell. He's walked a very interesting road as a coach. And I think he's got some really cool knowledge to share with everyone. So next week, Wednesday, it will be the same time slot, 3 to 4. We will send out links closer to the time. Once again, thanks, Bales. Thanks to everyone who attended, and apologies again for the initial technological glitch, but we will rectify that for the next one. Thanks, everyone. Cheers.
Thanks, Dan. Bye-bye.